Because if you can't be honest with yourself, if you can't be real with yourself, then who the hell can you be real with? Hello there, it's Mandy Woodard, and this is Courageous Conversations. The show is all about our life journey and the growing and healing we go through. Sometimes it takes great courage to step out of where we are and choose a different path. I started this show because I wanted you to know that you are not alone, no matter where you are in your life journey. And my hope is that you will hear a story that I share or a conversation that I have, and you will get something out of it. You will have an aha moment or a realization, and you'll know what you need to do. Because it is my belief that we are all here to help each other grow and become the best version of ourselves and find what our purpose is. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Let's get started. Well, hello. I actually had to dust my mic and my headphones off. I just thought, how funny. I'm turning this thing on for the first time in, I guess, 2.5 months. I recorded my last episode on winter solstice, so that would have been mid-December. And now here we are. It's March. So I felt like it was probably pretty appropriate that I catch you up with me and where I'm at. And then we can dive into the topic. Okay, so I have been absent from the podcast for the last couple months. I warned you I was going to take a break. I thought it would only be January though. And I knew that at the end of January, actually, I had planned to record throughout January so that I could put stuff out there in February. However, as I got into January, I felt a lot of resistance. And not resistance in the way of I need to quit this, because I'm going to be real honest with you. I love this. I love doing this. But I was still in rest mode. I still needed to honor what my body was telling me, and that was that it's still time to be in hibernation. So I paused it and said, you know what? I don't care what people think. I don't care what the experts might say, because that was the thing that was getting me the most was you can't be absent for so long or you lose your audience. Let me tell you why I think that that's not true. Because over the course of the last couple months, I have actually gained listeners. So that I found for me was a myth that I didn't need to buy into. I also really thought long and hard about what I would tell my client or you as a listener. If you were in that space and you were contemplating what to do, you know, I would have said, honor your body, honor what your intuition is saying to you. So I had to do that. I had to listen to that inner voice and honor that I still needed to hibernate for a little bit. And although it wasn't a total hibernation because I was still working, I was still seeing clients and being a mom and a wife, but I did take this off my plate, and I also took my monthly Reiki circles off my plate. And just those two things, you know, we tend to overbook ourselves. Very easily can we overdo it. And I had to reel it back in for a little bit and wait until the time was right to add this back in. And in fact, I'll tell you, I added Reiki circles back in first. I did that in February, and it didn't feel right for March. It felt like I have a lot on my plate for March, so that's not a good move. I guess I'm telling you all this because I want you to also listen to your intuition and don't be afraid to take things off of your plate. But that's where I'm at. That's what I've been doing. Sometimes we have to see someone else doing it so that we can realize that we need to do that for ourselves. I will tell you too, throughout this break that I've had here, I also have had sickness run through my house a couple times. I mean, it felt like for a second we weren't going to catch a break. We had norovirus was the most recent one. And God, that thing is brutal. That thing is so brutal. So that was another reason why I waited a little bit longer. I didn't want to bring anybody into our house for interviews, knowing that I might get them sick. So anyways, I'll tell you what I did do in that time period is I was listening to a lot of podcasts and a lot of workshops. I did a couple different workshops over this break, and one really hit home, really learned a lot. And of course, it's from Caroline Myss, one of my favorite spiritual teachers. I feel like I highlight her here pretty regularly. So if you haven't dove into her work yet, I highly recommend it. I have her book, Sacred Contracts, literally sitting right in front of me on my desk because I use it so much. I reference it so much because it's powerful and it's what we all need. It's what we all need to know. And the workshop, she didn't really talk about what I'm going to talk about today, but it inspired me to talk about what I'm going to talk about today. Because today's topic is honesty and integrity and the importance of that. And it was through watching her workshop that I really felt called to look inward a little bit more, a little deeper, and ask myself these hard questions. And then through that act of me doing that, I am expressing that now to my clients and anybody, honestly, that comes to me needing some guidance. This is what I say. I'm now living that. And I find that as a life coach or any type of practitioner in this field, we must first look at ourselves before we could ever guide someone else. You don't just become a healer. The path to become any type of leader, healer, coach, you have to walk the walk. And that's not to say that your life should be perfect. In fact, I'm going to tell you that that does not exist. There's too many things that happen outside of our control. But if I'm going to tell you something, I know I damn well better be doing it myself first. So our topic of honesty, the biggest thing I want to talk about is being honest with yourself. Because if you can't be honest with yourself, if you can't be real with yourself, then who the hell can you be real with? Who can you be honest with? It starts here. It starts with you. So let's talk about it. Let's dive in. I'm going to start off by talking about something that I did learn from Carolyn, which is the prostitute archetype. We all have this archetype, and the power of it, it's not what you think. When you hear the word prostitute, you probably think sells your body for sex. And that's just not true. That's not the full picture of it. She says, actually, the prostitute is the guardian of faith. The act of prostitution is generally associated with selling one's body for money. But to my mind, that is perhaps the least significant example of the prostitute archetype. The reason why the prostitute archetype is so powerful is because it keeps you in check with your integrity. It keeps you in this space of being honorable. It's the guardian of faith. How much faith do you have in yourself? Because if you don't have faith in yourself, you're going to sell yourself for whatever it may be, a paycheck, a relationship. If you have faith, then no one can buy you. And without that, you will meet something. You will meet a price that you cannot turn down. This is especially true if you're in a job you hate or a miserable marriage. You're selling yourself. You're not listening. You're not honoring that inner voice. And instead, you're staying in a place that isn't right for you. Because of what? Because it's too hard to shift. It's too hard to leave. It's too hard. But what is that doing for you? How do you really feel when you lay your head on that pillow at night? Are you really happy in that space? I'm not saying all this because I want a bunch of people to go out and get divorced or quit their jobs. I'm saying this because I want you to take a hard look and see where you're not being honest with yourself, because your happiness matters, and where you spend your time and where you give your love matters. How can you live more authentically? How can you live in a more honest way? It starts with getting quiet. And if you've been listening to me, I know I've said this before. You have to go inward and you have to sit in that quiet space so that you can know. A lot of times we'll block that voice out. We don't want to face the truth. We don't want to face what's hard. Why would we? That can be painful. But it's in leaning into that pain and facing what's hard that you really truly can live your best life. So listen to that inner voice, honor that inner voice. And if you can't hear it, it's time to start meditating. It's time to start praying like crazy. You got to. You got to, so that you can get clear on where you are supposed to be and living out your purpose. And here's the other thing. Oh my gosh, what's the percentage of Americans that feel anxiety? I'm going to Google it. I'm going to Google that right now. Okay, it says an estimated 31.1% of U.S. adults experience anxiety disorder at some point in their lives. I feel like that number is really low, though. It does say that in another study, it says, according to the American Institute of Stress, about 33% of people report feeling extreme stress. 77% of people experience stress that affects their physical health, and 73% of people have stress that impacts their mental health. So the number is obviously very high. We feel anxious, we feel stressed. Why? I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to go out on a huge limb and say it's because we're putting too much on our plate. We're not honoring our bodies and our need for rest, and we're not listening to our intuition when our inner voice says, enough is enough. We have to stop. So what are you avoiding? What aren't you facing? That's the question that you have to ask yourself. Because if you're being honest with yourself, then you know you need to cancel that event. You know that you need to pull back on your plans. You need to give yourself more time for healing and rest and recuperating. And I don't want to minimize this. I know those aren't the only reasons why we feel anxious in our lives. But a lot of times when we feel anxious, it is really because we are stuck in this space of, I got to make a really hard decision and I don't want to do it. So I'm going to lie to myself and tell myself that everything's fine. And then what happens next is you start running late and you're losing it because you're running late. Or what else might be really small? You forget something, you start to fall short in some area, or somebody says something to you, and even though it's small, it's like it triggers you. It triggers you and then you lose it. Or something little happens and that anxiety turns into a panic attack. Oh gosh, I have the perfect example. So when I had my panic attack, my big panic attack, I've had many, but the panic attack that sent me to the hospital, this was my first panic attack as an adult, and I really thought I was having a heart attack. I could not breathe. My chest was so tight. Even my teeth felt tingly, like, I don't know. It just, the weird things that happen when your body gets into this state. And do you know what set me off? Was my computer freezing. That sent me over the edge. My computer was freezing. I needed to edit some pictures. That's when I had my photography business. I needed to edit a wedding that was well overdue. We were living in my mom's basement, trying to build a house. And there were a lot of things happening that were contributing to my stress level and my anxiousness. And that's what I'm saying, is when we don't face these things or these decisions, or we don't find a way to allow our bodies to relax, then it's the little things that are going to set you off. So I'm going to ask you again, what are you avoiding? What are you avoiding facing? Maybe it's a trauma, and that's okay if you're not ready to heal a trauma or face a trauma. But when we do, it's the little things that make us feel anxious. Like if maybe you suffered from a car accident trauma, getting in the car seems so small, but you lose it. And the only way to heal that is to go and work with someone. Work through it. The only way out of something is through it. I'm telling you all this because it all comes back to the one thing. It's being honest with yourself. And if you're feeling anxiety or you're in this deep space of sadness, maybe you feel like you might be depressed. Maybe it's not clinical depression, but you're in that dark space. The question to ask is, what am I avoiding? Or who am I protecting? Maybe this involves another person and you're protecting them. You're not being true to yourself or them because you want to protect them from something. So what I'm going to ask you there is that helping? Are you seeing it? Are you seeing what I'm saying? Are you able to sit and think in your own life, put yourself in your own shoes here and kind of see where that might be? There might be some truth there. A lot of times when we feel like everything is wrong around us, it's not that things are wrong around us. It's that something within you needs to shift. There's an avoidance. There is something you're avoiding. And I really feel like I know this to be true because I've experienced it myself many times over. And I have to admit that to you. I still struggle with things. I still struggle with being honest with myself at times. But I know if I want to be honest with other people, I have to first be honest with myself. Which brings me into the next thing that I really wanted to talk about with this, and that is being honest with other people. So I uploaded a reel to Facebook recently, and I was very shocked at how it took off. And I got a lot of comments on it and some misunderstandings with it. But I was saying, why do people not feel safe coming to you? Why do people not feel comfortable coming to you? Maybe it's because you've broken their confidence. Maybe it's because you overreact when they try to tell you something. Maybe it's because they turn the tables and make things your fault. You come to them with something to tell them how you feel, and the response is, well, you. And so it feels like you can't be honest with that other person. And some of the dialogue in the comment section was, it's up to you to be honest with somebody. I acknowledge how hard that can be, how hard it can be to confront somebody who has hurt you. And there's a healing process to that for you to be able to feel strong enough. Is that what I want to say? Strong enough to go to them and say, this hurt me. Oh man, the awakening that I've had with this is huge because I recorded that reel and then I did this workshop and then I had this aha moment. And I realized that what matters is that I'm honest. And whether I come to somebody with something, and I will always listen to perspective. I'm going to say that. I think that's really important to be able to say, this is what happened. This is how it made me feel. And this is what I need. And this is what I'm asking of you. But then give space for them to share their perspective. This is how we grow. This is how we grow within a relationship. This is how we grow our souls and as people. But maybe you do have someone in your life where they've hurt you. And to confront them, wouldn't go well. I mean, that's a preconceived notion. That's a judgment. And we're not giving them the opportunity to respond when we go about that kind of a thought process. But I can respect it. If it doesn't feel right, it doesn't feel like saying anything would do anything. It would fall on deaf ears. But where I'm at with that now is whether they see it or not is not for me. That is their burden to bear. That is up to them. If they want to deny responsibility I no longer am going to allow that to hurt me. I'm going to note it. Noted. You don't get it. Okay. But I know my truth. We know our truth. We know honestly what's within us. Okay. And feelings are not fact. I do believe that. Sometimes we get it wrong. Sometimes we feel a certain way because of our own perspective, and we get stuck in that reality of what is our perspective, and we need to hear the other side. This is kind of a tightrope I'm walking on here. I hope that it's coming out the way that it is formulating in my brain, but you know what I mean. When you have something, an incident or a thing, and you take it to that person, and it's not even that you're just hearing, it's not even they want to share their perspective, it's that they want to blame you. Blame is the most unhelpful thing that any of us can do. What's happened, happened. Take responsibility for it or don't. But you can't sit here and blame me. What we have to do is know that everybody has their own life journey. They have their own path that they have to walk down. And if you do have that person that you try to go to and be honest, be real honest with how you're feeling. And if they cannot receive what you're saying, if they yell, if they attack, if they do any of those other toxic things, well, then you now know that there is a boundary that needs to be put in place. So it was a 60-second reel. I uploaded a follow-up 60-second reel. But as you can see, there's so much to be said here around this conversation about being honest with other people. And why wouldn't someone be able to be honest with you? Maybe you are that person, though, that people don't feel comfortable coming to you because they're afraid you might erupt or you might turn the tables and blame them. You have to get honest with yourself. Do you want to grow? Do you want strong, solid relationships? You have to be honest with yourself first. Okay, I might have gone on a little bit of a tangent there with that. But I feel so passionately about it, about all of it, the honesty, the being honest with yourself, the being honest with others, about those of us that need to face that harsh reality that we aren't someone that this person can come to. I just want to offer you this aha moment maybe. It was an aha moment for me. So when it comes to others and you, this was one of the things that I heard in the workshop, and that was you must ask. You must ask the people closest to you. What do I need to know that I don't want to know, but I should? And then give them space to answer. Once I was told that I don't take criticism well. We were in this group circle with some coworkers, I guess I should say. And we were kind of giving each other feedback. And I had to be in that space to receive it. And I was in the mindset of hit me with it. And it was, you don't take criticism well. I have sat with that for so long and really put myself in check. If I'm doing something wrong, I don't care who it's with, my kids, my husband, my work, my friends, my siblings, I need to know. If I've done something to hurt you, I need to know. And maybe you don't feel comfortable telling me. I get that a lot. And then you got to ask yourself too, because actually that brings me to this. You don't feel comfortable coming to me. I've gotten this a lot. You're so intimidating. And I do resent that. I'm not operating in a way that I want to intimidate people. If you're feeling intimidated, you got to look inside you. Why am I intimidating you? What is it that I'm doing that's intimidating? I've heard that my entire life, and I'm mind blown every time. What? What am I even doing? Sometimes it's just our natural aura. We walk into a room and immediately somebody else feels intimidated. Well, that's a trigger because there's something in there that needs to be healed. I have not done anything wrong at that point. I've simply walked into a room. So if you're not being honest with somebody because of your own inner fears, maybe they haven't done anything to you or operated in a way that would make you uncomfortable. It's something within you that you're feeling that shyness, I guess, for lack of a better word. That's okay. Now we have awareness. And once we have awareness, that's when we can take that personal responsibility, and responsibility breeds empowerment. Now you can empower yourself to step in the right direction. So in those cases, maybe it necessarily wasn't my fault. Maybe I definitely at times have had people feel uncomfortable coming to me with something and because of how I was operating. But sometimes it's not because of how I'm operating. It's because of it being something that needs healed within them. And there's nothing wrong with that. I actually had somebody tell me one time, you're so easy to talk to, but when I first met you, you were so intimidating. I was so intimidated by you. And I'm like, it's that right there. It's not that I'm intimidating. It's that you are intimidated. And you got to ask yourself why you're intimidated. Why did you feel too shy? Like you weren't good enough to come talk to me? Because that's bullshit. I'm just a human. Don't be afraid to say hi. Don't be intimidated. Because if you are, I want to ask you to look inward. Why are you intimidated? Why are you feeling like you're not good enough to come talk to somebody? That is you giving your power away. And you got to call that back in. I only want you to feel empowered and full of strength. I only want you to have aha moments and be pumped up. That is literally my purpose with this podcast and with my work, is to help people call their power back and stand strong in who they are and live in integrity and be honest with themselves. Listen to that intuition. Listen to that inner voice. I think the hardest thing with being honest with yourself is when you can't see it, when you are stuck in a belief and you can't see that that's a belief. And that's why going on a self-discovery or a healing journey is so powerful and so very important. Because then you do get to open your eyes to it. You do get to see it. So much of our suffering comes from us not seeing things clearly, not having the clarity. And it's never too late to begin this. It's never too late to take that first step on that path of, I need to reconnect with my inner knowing. These beliefs cost you your power though, and they compromise your integrity. And that then will cost you your energy, your life force energy. You're not living out your purpose. Because this is the thing, in order to maintain a belief, a limiting belief or unhelpful belief, however you want to word it, you have to lie to yourself. You have to maintain the lie. And you can keep on with that. You can, but you're going to pay a price. You're going to pay a really big price. It's going to either affect your mental health or it's going to affect your physical health. Or more than likely, it's going to affect both. I want to talk to you about honesty today because it is so important and so imperative that you no longer be dishonest with yourself. You can no longer be dishonest with yourself. It has to stop. It has to end here because what happens next is nothing but a bunch of suffering. Especially once you know. Once you recognize, okay, that is a belief. It's a spell I'm under. What's happening when you're lying to yourself is you are ignoring your energetic senses. You're ignoring that biointuitive data that you are receiving. If you walk into a room and you immediately feel uncomfortable, but you ignore that uncomfortable feeling, then you are not being honest with yourself. It's imperative. It is imperative that you are honest with yourself because those moments cost you. It may not seem like a lot in the moment, but it adds up. If over and over again in a workspace, you see misconduct or things that are not right and you ignore it, every time you walk through that door, you ignore it, you are costing yourself your integrity. You are costing yourself your own mental well-being. You have to honor that information as it comes in. You have to listen to that intuition. You don't have a choice anymore. I mean, I guess you do have a choice though. It's not going to be what you want. I can tell you. You're not going to feel whole. You're not going to feel at peace. You're going to keep making up a story. Oh, well, that's just how so-and-so is. Oh, he doesn't mean anything by it. He's just being silly. Maybe at home. Oh, he's just had a hard day. He's just had a long day. He works so hard. Oh, she doesn't mean anything by it. Ah, man, isn't that the best? When an entire circle of people will make excuses for one person's behavior and they're all just lying to themselves to say that it's acceptable and it's okay. And you go along with it. Will you be the one that speaks up? That's what I want you to ask. Will I be the one to say enough? This isn't okay. It can't go on anymore. That generational trauma gets passed down because of the people who ignore the behavior. And despite best efforts, the behavior then gets repeated. Do you see why I'm saying is so important? The honesty is so important. This isn't just about you living as your authentic self. This is about you breaking generational cycles. It has to stop somewhere. And it's only going to stop when somebody speaks up and says, nope, no more. I will not comply with this behavior anymore. I will not sit here and act like this is normal or acceptable to talk to someone else in that way. In the workspace, I will not stand by and just think that this is acceptable, that this man places his hand on the small of a woman's back who he has no business touching. That's just fine. Or he says something and makes her super uncomfortable. Who is going to speak up? It's scary. It's scary to be the one that is honest and outspoken. But if we want things to change, if we want to really stay true to ourselves, then we got to listen to that guardian of faith, that prostitute archetype, putting you in check. Do you have faith that everything will work out as it should? Sometimes people are honest and they lose everything. But did you really have it? That fear of, if I'm honest, I might lose my job or I might lose my marriage. Did you really have it? Was it really real? I don't know. I don't have the answers to that. Only you do. So you got to ask. You got to ask yourself, what are you avoiding? Who are you protecting? Are you being true to yourself? Hey, listen, I'm going to tell you something. I went a little all over the place today. I normally have such a structured way of getting what I want to say out, and I didn't do that today, and I'm totally okay with it. I really wanted to just go with the flow and see where this conversation took me, and I hope that you receive it well. And if you don't, it's okay. I will make space for the criticism. I'm going to leave you with this. Know that no matter where you are in your life, it's where you're supposed to be. And if you listen to this and you're like, I've not been honest with myself, the last thing I want is for you to then go down that rabbit hole of beating yourself up. Do not do that, because life is a journey. And one of the most impactful things that I heard in that workshop is Caroline said, sit at the feet of your own life. Learn from your own life journey. Can you do that? Can you just take a minute and reflect on your many paths that you've been down, even the ones that feel like they might have been a little dark? Sit at the feet of your own life. Let me journey with you. Let me learn from you. Say that. Say that to yourself. You don't need to ask why. You might spiral out of control trying to figure out why, because you're not always meant to know. Instead, ask the question of what. What can I learn? How can I move forward? What can I do differently? And in those answers, be honest. Be honest with yourself. It's the only way. All right, my friend. Thank you so much for listening. If you got value out of this, please share it with a friend because maybe they need to hear it too. And if you decide to go on social and give me a little shout out, please tag me. My handle on Instagram is @LifeWithMandy. I also have Lionheart Coaching Co. LLC Facebook page. Tag me wherever you can. And I want you to know how much I appreciate you. I really do. I appreciate you listening and giving me your time. And I just hope that I served you well and you were able to get something out of this. All right. Remember, you are loved. You are appreciated. And you are strong. See that for yourself. You are strong. It's in there. Bye now.